We continue in the 42nd chapter, speaking about the presence of God, meaning that God sees us. That's the idea, that God sees what we do. That itself should change the way we do things. Very simple. Just like anybody walks into the room when you're alone, you change the way you do things, especially if that person's important to you. Right? That's called reverence, respect. And then that is the simple idea. So if that's the case, then, if that's the case, if God's seeing me, then isn't in turn the other thing also true? I'm seeing God. And if anything, isn't it not that I know that God sees me that brings me to greater reverence, but the fact that I'm actually seeing God brings greater reverence towards him, and therefore change in behavior. You know, if you're being filmed by a secret camera, it doesn't have the same effect as if you see the camera right in front of you being filmed. Well, you're making sure that you say everything appropriately. You're saying everything appropriately, right? So how do we understand that idea? And that we're seeing God, not just he sees us. So the Alter Rebbe actually first brings us a metaphor of a king. When you see a mortal king, you have fear from, right? Not just because the king can do whatever he wants with your life. The back in the day king, not, today's kind of king. 500 years ago, that kind of king yields the power. So we're not talking about, the fear of your life, but just the fear of the presence of the king. Now, what is it that you would fear of the king? What is it? The physical body? The clothes that the king is wearing? Not really. Because if the king were asleep, you wouldn't have the same fear. Now, you might have fear that you might wake up the king and therefore, there might be some wrath. But it's not the clothing of the king that you fear. It's not the physical flesh of the king that you fear. It's the vitality of the king that you actually fear. Right? So, in that sense, that metaphor then allows us to understand that even though I'm not physically seeing the king, God, but in my mind's eye, I could be aware of his presence, and in that sense, in my mind's eye, I perceive him. Not my physical eye. But the truth is, isn't that the same thing with the king? A mortal king. A mortal king, it's not the physical aspect of the king that I have a sense of reverence towards. It is the vitality of the king that's in the body. And when he's asleep, it's not really so active. So it's the vitality, which I don't see that vitality of a person, let alone the king, right? I see a body. I see clothing, right? So likewise, when we can have reverence for God when we're gazing with our physical eyes on heaven and earth and all of the celestial things above. Why? Because the vitality of God is clothed within all of creation. And with my mind's eye, right, well, with my physical eye, I'm seeing a sun, I'm seeing a moon, I'm seeing stars. But with my mind's eye, what am I gazing upon? The vitality that's clothed within it. My mind's eye, I'm aware that it is God's vitality is giving life to the sun, the moon, and everything. Again, like the king. What is it about the reverence that I have towards the king, the fear of the king? It's not the physical body that my physical eye sees, but my mind's eye recognizes that there is vitality to the person. That vitality, I don't see that. My mind's eye knows it. I don't see it. See the correlation there. Says the Alter Rebbe, yeah, but come on. You could make a distinction here. When you see the king when he's asleep, you know for certain, there's no doubt in your mind that what makes the king is not a piece of clothing or of flesh, but it's the vitality of the soul that vests itself and gives life. There's no doubt in your mind about that. So therefore, you can extrapolate very simply and intellectually know in your mind's eye that there is an inner vitality of the king that gives life to the body. But that's not so obvious when it comes to physical things in this world. The divine life force is so concealed with many garbs that cover up on it that it's quite possible that you can gaze on the physical world and worship the sun. Oh, sun, please come out for a sunny day. And you can fail to be aware that in the sun and the moon and all of the creations, there's a vitality of God that's vested within it and giving it life. So there is kind of a difference. The Alter Rebbe says, though, yeah, on one level there's a difference in the, shall we say, the certainty, perhaps. The certainty. But in essence, there is no difference. Whether the king is wearing one garb, 5 or 10 different garments, inside is the vitality of the soul that is what's animating the flesh. Yes, it's covered over with many garments. Those many garments don't cover over the truth that we know, that there's a soul that's the vital force of the king. And that's what we have reverence for. Right? Even though, what are we gazing upon with our physical eye? Clothing, flesh of a person. But in our mind's eye, there's a certainty. So Alter Rebbe says, the truth is the same thing as with God. Yes, there might be many more garments, many more concealments, and perhaps it's not as obvious that when you see a person, see a king, yeah, there's no question that they're alive because of a soul that animates the physical flesh. You have no doubt about it. So the truth is, I have no doubt about the physical world. The difference is that we just need to train ourselves, to habituate ourselves, that in our minds, in our thoughts, that we should continuously always have imprinted in our mind an awareness that that's not just the sun, sunrise, sunset, the moon in its natural habitat of movement. No, that's the outer garment. But we know that there is an inward vitality that is coming from God. There's no question about it. And that's what gives it its vitality. That's what gives it its existence. That's what gives it its unique nature. We just have to habituate ourselves to come to recognize that. In other words, that when we're looking at the physical world, what are we seeing? The physical eye is seeing a sun and a moon, stars, and so on and so forth. But we habituate ourselves to see what? Beyond that. The vitality of God that is vested in everything within creation. The smallest thing of a pen, that it exists. Me. That I exist. So that is a practice that we need to habituate ourselves to see the world in such a way. And the Alter Rebbe concludes and says, this is actually what faith means for a Jew. Faith means the word faith in Hebrew is emunah, that comes from the word oymen, a craftsman. A craftsman has a talent. A craftsman has a talent. But that talent remains dormant unless you habituate yourself. So if you've got a nice talent to write calligraphy, or to be a painter, or to be a to do something with woodwork, whatever it is, you got to practice it to reveal that which is a part of your natural talents that are deep down within you, and now to be expressed on the outside. And the more you practice it, the more it becomes a tangible expression of a reality of yours. A Jew has a talent. We all have a talent. But what is the unique talent of the Jewish soul? That unique talent is, and it's something that's given to us by our patriarchs that we have inherited, is a recognition of God in everything. Now, others can also have that talent, but this is unique to all Jewish souls. To have a talent to perceive beyond what the physical eye sees, but the mind's eye recognizes. We have a talent for God. Now, of course, you can corrupt that talent and use it for other things that are maybe not so worthy or good for your life. But that's the talent. Emunah, that's the faith. Emunah means that you have a talent for something and you just have to practice it to express it and to bring it out. That's the talent, the faith. A Jewish faith is not about having faith of something that is external to you, that is not of you. Like, to believe in something, whatever. That's not a part of you. So a Jew, our faith is in God, is in us, the part of God that we have in us. Another Jew, because they're a part of us, in my Jewish soul. Torah, because Torah is a part of us. It's not something separate. Not something. Right now we're learning Tanya. We're not learning something outside of us. It's a part of the makeup of the Jewish soul. So what you are doing is relearning yourself. Really, when you have trust in God, you're just relearning that part that's within you, just expressing it. So when we walk out into the world and we see a great concealment, we see darkness, we see even evil. That's what the physical eye is seeing. At the same time, we recognize with our mind's eye the abstract that is beyond, that is not beyond me, because it's of me. It's a talent that I have. It's a craft that I have, that I'm able to see godliness, to perceive it, and to make that a deeper reality of mine, to habituate myself. So there's a war going on. There's a pandemic going on. There's a lot of negativity going on. And you don't even have to see that negativity. There's just a physical world that seems to convey materiality. And that's what we run after as a result. No. Our mind's eye can see something different. Because what's it looking at? something deeper inside of me, a piece of me that's inside of me. That faith that I have in God, that God is the true vitality of everything of the world. That even though the physical eye doesn't just sees the garments, right? The mind's eye sees the soul of and the vitality of the world, which is godliness. And the same thing when it comes to human relations. If I can see that in the world, not just what the physical eye is showing me, but I can see the mind's eye, what it recognizes, that God is the true vitality of everything. So the same thing when I'm looking at another person. I could look at them, the clothes that they're wearing, physical clothes, or the way they're behaving, and just connect to that level of them. Or, in my mind's eye, I can see this person has a soul. And that soul is beautiful. Yeah, maybe it's covered up now with a lot of, concealing garments. And that person might not even be aware. They might not be living with it at all. However, we have a choice. What do we want to live with? Do you want to live with the physical eye, that what it sees, or the mind's eye, what it's capable of perceiving? And it's not something beyond us. That's the important thing. Faith in Judaism doesn't mean that we have faith in God because he's beyond us. Obviously, God's beyond us. But we have a part of him in us. So we're tapped into that part in us. So that gives us a faith and a trust and a recognition. In this instance, what we're talking about, a recognition of God's presence. That I see him. My mind's eye. When I look at the moon. When I look at the sun. I habituate myself to be able to recognize his presence, and he's the one who's giving vitality. When I look at a tree or I look at a leaf, I can get lost in the beautiful structure of it and how it is, physically being nourished from photosynthesis, from the minerals from the earth, and so on. That's what the physical eye can actually see with a microscope. But then there is what the mind's eye can perceive much more than that. The depth of it. And ultimately, it's God's vital force, his word that is animating this tree, this flower, this beautiful thing. So that's what we habituate ourselves, the craft that we have, the talent that we have to be able to see that. And we can all do that. Even though this is unique to the Jewish soul, but every human being can also do that. Which is so much, what a different world to live in as a result. It's a different world. Again, why is it different? Because we're not living with what just we physically see. Not just about God, but other people that were in our lives, or any situation. Someone that, today is struggling with, dealing with a situation that on the surface it's a downer. It's a downer. That's only the physical eye what it sees. Don't live with that. Live with your mind's eye. The talent that you have. And that talent that's what emunah means. A craft that we have, a talent that we have, that we can perceive God in that situation. And therefore, you know what? We're going to be full of joy. But no, it's a trying situation. We're going to be full of joy. Because in your mind's eye, you're capable of that. Okay. Questions, comments, powerful stuff. Okay, Alan, we're going to wait just a moment. I just want to go online before I lose the feed. And we'll... Two question marks before you write a question, so I can see that it's a question. Okay. Guess everybody's living with their no question. Okay, thank you, Davida. No questions here. So, Alan, please share with us. Go ahead, my friend.
Morning, Rabbi.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm pretty good. So, this is chapter 42, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
So,
yeah.
So in chapter 42, the Rebbe says some things that I just want to understand a little bit better in terms of the of the language. He says, "B'chol dar v'dor," in every generation, your din nitzotzin minishmas Moshe Rabbeinu alav shalom. There we merit to have descended upon us the sparks of the neshama of Moshe Rabbeinu.
Right.
Peace be upon him. Umid labshim b'guf and nefesh, and they clothe and inhabit the body and soul. Shel Chachmei Hador,
right,
of the wise ones of the generation, which is often interpreted as the sages of the generation. But as a storyteller, and being kind of conversant with Hasidic stories, which I love, many times you find the wisdom not only in the Rebbe but in the water carrier and the peddler and people. Who you wouldn't think be the carriers of wisdom,
right?
But nonetheless, this is Hashem's choice, So, am I right in assuming that Chachmei Hador can be these people as well?
Yes and no, as every good Jewish answer. I mean, literally, it does mean, those who live with this reality. In other words, we're talking about this awareness of, in the mind's eye, that we perceive God. So we fluctuate, the sun comes out, going to be a beautiful sunny day, and in a sense, what are we? We're almost saying as if the sun kind of like, it decided to come out and it's giving us a sunny day, implied in that, even though we don't mean that, but it's kind of implied. Why? Because, in our mind's eye, we haven't trained ourselves so sufficiently to perceive God's presence. But the true wise people, what their mind's eye is more real for them than their physical eye. So their perception in their mind's eye is reality, not the physical eye. We have to train ourselves little by little to at least overcome what we perceive to be the true reality, and that's what I physically see. And by training ourselves, having this proper, this is what faith means in Judaism, is to train that talent that I have, that's not the true reality. Right? Just like when I was in my journey in Judaism, which, one day we'll bring about. So, well, actually, before, the communist teacher gets up in front in the classroom and says, "Can anybody in our class here? Does anybody see God? No. Does anybody smell him or taste him or hear him? No. Well, I guess we have to conclude God doesn't exist." So a little boy in the back of the room, a 9-year-old Jacob, gets up, says, "Teacher, I have a question. Students, does anybody see the teacher?" Says, "Oh, I guess the teacher exists. Does anybody see the teacher's brains?" Says, "No, we don't see the teacher's brains. Anybody smell it? Anybody taste it?" "No." "Well, I guess the teacher has no brains." And so I once told this to somebody. He says, "Well, break open the head of the teacher, and you'll break open take a bat and break open the head of the teacher, and you're going to see brains there." He says, "No, you won't. You'll see flesh. You're not going to see brains. You're going to see flesh. In your mind's eye, you will know that there is brains there. There's intelligence, right? But you don't see intelligence. You see flesh. So we are people of the flesh. We see flesh. And what we have to train ourselves is to be able to see the spiritual, to see the godly, to see the presence of God. That's the true vitality in all of flesh. So the real Chachmei Hador, they're living with that. We're a work in progress, so we're not really, are we, we're somewhat living with it. And in a sense, though, that being said, so in a literal sense, we're not that at all. But we could choose to be it. That's what I want to be. And if that's what I want to be, I can be. And I am. So I hope that helps you a bit, Alan. I hope it helps everybody.
Well, yeah, I don't think you completely understood what I was trying to say.
Oh, I'm sorry if I didn't understand.
Well, what I'm saying is that I'm not suggesting that the Chachmei Hador are going to be peddlers. I'm
Well, no, they might be a peddler. Yeah, they could be a peddler, but and that's what they do. But that's not who they are.
Right, I understand that. But what I'm trying to say is it's really Hashem's choice in terms of deep wisdom where it sits, and of course it mainly sits among people who are steeped in Torah. That makes sense to me. But it's really God's choice,
right,
in terms of where it sits.
Right.
And it could be surprising where Chachmei Hador is at a given generation.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't understand that. Yes, absolutely.
But you're in agreement with that, yes?
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Okay, so let me, over here on Instagram, David, are the words fear and awe interchangeable? Yes. Awe is just a very higher level. Reverence is a lower level. Okay. Alice, how do we tolerate a rasha and a wicked person in terms of seeing their inner beauty? Because they have a soul, so we have to be able to perceive that, and not just see what our physical eye is seeing. That's really the important lesson over here. Am I going to lead my life on just what my physical eye sees and what I hear, or am I going to be able to dig deeper into my soul? And my soul, in and of itself, is not physically being able to be seen. But when I live with that reality, so that reality means I will have a deeper appreciation of that which the mind's eye can perceive, that's far beyond what the physical eye can. And that's a perception of God in the world. That's a perception of the soul in a wicked person. And to be able to connect to that, and to help them to realize, also not living by the five senses and live by something of the soul themselves. I hope that helps Alice. Bella, what if a person is in pain? How do they find joy and purpose? What does God want from those people? All right, that's already for Tanya, the Tanya Rabbi community, which is going to be starting next week, folks. God willing, very exciting. You'll be able to start signing up for it, not today, but it's coming. And it's going to be amazing, because everything that we're doing here, we'll be able to take it to the next level when you sign up to be a part of it. And it's going to be, I'm extremely excited about it. What happened to, where was Mark? Oh, I just wanted to let him come in. All right, anybody else want to share? We have Lebanon, Israel with us. We have Batya, Priscilla, Adam, Jenna, Sina, Sandy, Tim, Sheer, Michael, David, Earl, Marcy, Alan. All right. Simcha, is Torah in a way our spiritual garments? Well, garments means, garments come on and off, right? Metaphorically, that refers to our thought, speech, and action, because we could choose what to think, to say, and to do. So those are like garments of the soul. Okay. Vida has a question. When the Rebbe said, see with your right eye, was he referring to seeing with the right side of the chesed in everyone? Yes. Yeah. Absolutely. All right, folks. Amazing as always you are. An inspiration for me. Reminder, Rambam today at 1 o'clock. And again, the Tanya Rabbi community at TanyaRabbi.com is coming, and it will again take what we're doing over here and allow us to grow into to take this and not just to be an inspiration, but to really take it home in a way that you own it. By the things that we'll be offering, weekly encounters, and monthly experts, and even one-on-ones. All right, folks, it's happening. I'm Rabbi Ronnie Fine, coming to you from Chabad Zich and Kadesh in Montreal, Canada. It's a privilege and a pleasure to share with you the Tanya. Have a wonderful day. Thank you for joining.